Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Dynowarz Destruction of Spondylus. In the last part we started off the game and now we're gonna go finish off the game because really, there's not much to say about this game otherwise. The one thing that still confuses me about what it's supposed to be is that blue thing on the top center of the screen. Because that is always there, it never moves. I guess it could be a satellite or a ship that is in the center of all of the Spondylus planets. But hell if I know. In fact, you know what? I'm going to take a look at the manual because I do have a PDF of that up. Let's see if it talks about it at all. Oh, no, that's what it is. I actually completely forgot about that element. That is a satellite destruction system. If you press the select button, you get a screen nuke. I entirely forgot about that. I guess that shows how useful it is. It can only be used once in each stage, but that's a thing. Also, just to show how inconsequential death is during the dinosaur stages, just look at that. I'm already back to where I was. God, brilliant. Brilliantly designed game. Also, I'd like to note the manual says, winning strategies. The game is finished when Professor Proteus has activated the life support computers on all 7 planets. God, what? Wow. 90-day limited warranty? Ooh, boy. Feel the late 80s, technically 1990. Oh, man. It's weird. This game is bad. And I know it's bad. But I still had some amount of fun playing this because it was a fun nostalgia trip, I suppose, and realizing, wow, I had zero taste as a 4 to 6-year-old, roughly. But it's not the right kind of fun to me. I don't even know how to describe it. Some people have fun nostalgically revisiting the Sonic Adventure games. I don't really have nostalgia for those games, so I don't feel that, but I can still have some fun in some of the playstyles, I guess. Whereas this, I guess in some way this was catharsis. Finally beating the game, because I've only ever beaten this game twice in my life, this and one time after much difficulty when I was a kid, of finally beating the game that tortured me for so long, I suppose. Also, I'd like to note, the Cyborasaurus' staged sprite is probably the worst sprite in the game, because its color palette is so dull. Because a lot of these enemies stand out from the screen a lot in the background, whereas we're visible, but comparatively we're nowhere near as interesting looking. I know I say that in the stage where we actually stand out a good bit because orange and green work well together like that, but Also, the pterodactyl boss fights are potentially the most annoying in the game if you don't have a good weapon for it. Like, say, if you have maybe the level 1 fireball or the punch still for some reason, it can be kind of annoying to hit the boss without taking damage yourself. Oh, hey, a barrier. Sweet. One thing I can't recall about barriers is if they last in between stages. Like, say, I don't think I end up doing so here. If I have an amount of my barrier left when I finish the stage, if it carries over to stage 6. I don't think it does, but it would be nice if it did. Also, what we're looking at now is basically the closest thing to a difficulty curve most of the platforming stages in Dynowarz has. They start combining the platforms, which can be potentially annoying, I guess. The only other progression the platforming stages really has is that they slowly get longer. Like, let me look at the maps, because GameFAQs does have full maps for it. 2-2 is 3 stages, 3-2 is 6, 4-2 is 5, but there's more bottomless pits. 5-2 here, or is this 6-2? No, this is 5-2. There's only 4 stages, but there's bottomless pits in the stages and the boss itself. Yeah, there's, I guess, some progression there, I suppose. One thing I'm not entirely sure about with the bosses of the platforming stages, though, is if it's better for you to be closer to them, because you can obviously kill most of them from quite the distance away, as I've been doing. But I'm not sure if, like, standing right in front of that, the one we just destroyed in front, standing in front of it on that moving platform would kill it faster due to the more, theoretically higher rate of fire you could get. Oh, actually, one thing I should mention, there's actually more special passwords than I brought up. 7777 is the enemy viewer. 8708 allows you to have a weapon select, which is potentially the best way to play the game. I think it's 0916 is a stage select. 1965, I think, is sound test, which is possibly the best thing has. And I think 9425 just allows you to outright view the ending. Either way, we have level 3 beam, which is the best weapon in the game out right now. If you get this, hold on for dear life and hope you never die, because you probably have the highest damage output you can probably get. Rate of fire still sucks, but yeah, you're definitely killing things faster. In a way, this game actually kind of reminds me of another game I saw a lot as a kid, for some reason, at like local game stores, but never bought because I wasn't a big fan of the movie it was based off of at the time, and that's The Rocketeer. I forget if that was supposedly a good game or not, though. I know I love the Rocketeer movie now, and I even have the full collection of the comic in the other room. But, yeah, that was a game. Let's see, is this... Yeah, this is where we start encountering what is overall the hardest boss type in the game. The Brachiosaurus, I think. I forget what the exact species name is. I remember they were called Long Necks in Land Before Time, and that's about it. These guys are hardy, and I think you can only do damage to them at their head. Best strategy overall, just to do with the lock I got that one into there. And that's it. We're on to the second to last platforming section. I know I said overall we'd be doing around 2 20-minute parts, but overall it's more like 1 20-minute part and I think 1 16? They're even on the same timeline, which is something I don't do often, so I can't exactly tell right now. Now, you see, one thing I have to give the platforming stages over the dinosaur stages is that you stand out from the background pretty well due to the very, very yellow and orange, I think even a bit of green in there, environmental tiles. You stand out pretty well. However, it still doesn't look that good. Is it said that probably the best looking enemy in the platforming stages is the very first one you encounter? These, I don't even know what the hell they're supposed to be. I guess they're supposed to be the human experiments that Dr. Brainius was working on, whereas the Robosaurs and the ones you're fighting in Cyborasaurus. But, oh boy. Now, one thing I swear you can do during most of these types of rooms is that you can just jump from the floor to the platform I'm on right now. And I know Stage 7 has us do that, but I forget if you can do that this early on. I think they might have specifically programmed you to not be able to, but mind you, for all I know, the fact you can do it at all is probably an unintentional programming quirk they decided to work into the main game. Because that sounds like late 80s, early 90s programming on the NES. Actually, wait, this came out in 1990. That means this came out the same year as Final Fantasy III. Oh, man. Like I say, the NES was a fun enough console and had good games on it if they are developed by good developers. For instance, one of my favorite NES games that is flawed, extraordinarily so, is probably Nightmare on Elm Street. Because that, I think that was one of the LGN games that was made by Rare. I know the Home Alone game was made by Bethesda, which, wow, they came far. Still have about the same amount of bugs, though. I think the only change these bosses get as we go through the game, by the way, is that I think they start firing out their little, I don't even know what to call those, parasites faster? That is actually it. Thankfully, you can clearly tell what the hitbox is, because if you look at the actual sprite of the thing on the right, the thing I'm shooting has a clear black box around it that doesn't blend in with the tube it's in too well. I wish I could find more information on this game's development, because it would either be something that was extraordinarily lazy or extraordinarily interesting. Because there is some sort of story here as to why it was American only and such, probably writing off some sort of toy line that was similar enough to robotic dinosaurs or some shit. But there was something going on. Also, if you heard a click there, that was my mouse falling. It is a weird occurrence, though, that when it comes to games I remember playing a lot of on the NES that weren't Mario or Zelda, they all almost have a blue protagonist, because I played a shitload of Mega Man, obviously. I played this, and I played a lot of the first Lolo. And I think Wrecking Crew had a bluer protagonist than most Mario games. Which, odd coincidence. Mind you, if I recall, on the NES's color palette, blue was the most prominent color. Like, there were more shades of it than anything else. So, that's probably why. I think that's why Mega Man was blue, even. Either way, on to the final stage, which is probably the most visually interesting one, because it looks like something from Contra. I do have to give them credit, though. The asteroids and moons in the background of the dinosaur stages actually look good. Mind you, I said on the whole, I think this game is graphically weird in that there's some really good-looking stuff for NES in it, but also some really meh-looking. I won't say horrible, because I have most certainly seen worse on the NES. Like most of LJN's games, even, or Cheetah Man. But, oh boy. Actually, no, I won't just say Cheetah Man. Action 52 in general. Sadly, what I wish they could have done with the weapon power-up system, if maybe you got a fourth one after you're already level 3, they could have done something with that, I suppose. Like maybe extra use of the satellite or something. I don't know. At this point, you can see that I've completely given up caring and I'm just trying to walk past most of the enemies. Which, I guess, is just the way you really should play the game, but I always feel bad doing that because I feel like I'm ignoring the game's purpose, you know? Because we're supposed to be destroying the dinosaurs. That's why it's called the Dynowarz, even though there's very little war going on here, even. And also, this is one of those games, obviously, I mentioned I had trouble with it a lot, playing it. It reminds me a lot of another game I had issues with, Bucky O'Hare, I think it was called. I had a lot of troubles with that. Also, we're technically on the final real boss now. He is most certainly the most aggressive. I guess this is supposed to be Dr. Brainius working in some Mechagodzilla shit. But, just do the same thing you've always been doing. Firing and maybe try to avoid damage. I get a bit close, but overall, it's still a very meh boss. It's odd. I remember this game being really hard. It's not. It's honestly very easy going back to it. There's still some annoyance due to the control not being perfect and some of the hitboxes being weird. But on the whole, I breezed through this in like 45 minutes total. I do recall, though, at the end of this section, I ended up dying so much that I ended up just cutting out a large portion of the stage. What I end up doing is on the trek back through this after the final life support system, I fall down a pit and I edit past a good amount of the rooms. At this point, I can say for a fact that I'm basically out of things to say, which I guess is appropriate because we're in the last few minutes, but really, this game is very inconsequential in the gaming market. Made by developers who ported some good games and made what is often considered one of the worst NES games of all time. It's better than that game, but there's no real reason to go back to it for me after this. I'm probably never going to touch this again in my life. I might listen to the music again, because it's an admittedly good soundtrack. But I don't have much incentive to play it ever again unless I'm, like, playing it for a charity marathon or some shit that might happen. I don't know. I actually ended up having a conversation with my mother in between parts about this game, and she even remembers not liking it that much. Mind you, that's not much to say, because she didn't care for games that weren't really Mario or Lolo related. Like, she loved Dr. Mario to death. That's probably her favorite video game of all time. My dad loved Galaga. Also, that's my first, one of my 2 major deaths in the game that's not from falling in pits. I'd also like to note a critical design flaw here. They give you a barrier enemy during the final fight. And one thing I should mention is that, as far as I'm aware, energy, barrier, and weapon drops from enemies in all the stages are, I think, set. Specific enemies will always have it. That basically just gives you an invincibility pass on the final fight, which is dumb. Takes all the challenge right out of it. And at this point, we're just backtracking out towards the main entrance. It's one thing that's also kind of weird. They get rid of all the enemies on the treks out, so I guess it could be more of a platforming thing. Also, that was me dying, so let's just get on the hell out of here. It does feel good to finally give this game the beating it deserved, but overall, this game is just not really much of anything. Because the moment we jump up into this teleporter, we don't even get an ending cutscene, it skips right to the credits. And it's very short credits, too. It does have my favorite song in the game. The credits theme is the longest theme in the game, but also the best one. Dynowarz, as I've mentioned for the past few minutes, fairly inconsequential. Good music, some good cutscene graphics, and I like the weapon system enough, but the actual game itself is so bland and lacks the sense of progression that it just doesn't really make itself worth going back to. In fact, what we're looking at right now is probably the best thing in the game. I actually really like this shot, even though Professor Proteus himself over there looks a bit weirdly proportioned. It says something when the credits are not even 2 minutes long. Not even a minute, rather. But it basically ends with, hey, go play one of our other games, because really, that's all we can say about ourselves at this point. But with that, I'm going to end this LP off here. Thank you guys for watching, have a great night, take care, and I'll see you guys next Let's Play, whatever much better game that may be. See you guys then, and I guess enjoy the last few seconds of the credits theme.